Sertoma's name is derived from a phrase that is also at the heart of everything that we do: service to mankind. Our goal is to improve and positively impact the lives of others. At the crux of that work is the community, the places where we've chosen to build our homes, raise our families, live our lives. Community engagement is an essential part of everything that we do, from initially building a club to choosing our mission activities to raising money and beyond. In this session, we'll take a look at community engagement and share 3 strategies that experts believe can help organizations like ours build a strong community engagement strategy. We'll also share 5 tactics that your club can employ to help it set and reach its engagement goals. This is Community Engagement, strategies to help your club connect locally. Collaboration, support for your mission, and a shared goal all play a huge part in successful community engagement. Writing for environmental nonprofit Resolve Inc., social scientist Hildy Gottlieb defines social engagement as the process of building relationships with community members who will work side by side with you as an ongoing partner in any and every way imaginable, building an army of support for your mission with the end goal of making the community a better place to live. There are a number of ways you can go about engaging with your community, but the experts from Donor Direct have identified 3 strategies to help us get started. The first strategy centers upon demonstrating community issues. You need to show the audience what the challenges or problems are in your community, and that demonstration needs to be compelling if you're to garner substantial support for your cause. This can be achieved in one of 3 ways. First up, we have anecdotal evidence. This is the type of evidence that is going to be most obvious to those in your area. These are the easily observable issues that residents can see and experience firsthand. This could come in the form of seeing trash lining a busy roadway, a park greatly in need of revitalization, or long lines waiting outside the community food pantry. Storytelling can be incredibly helpful here, whether it's through photos, video, or an in-person tour. For other mission work, you may need to rely on scientific data. These fact-finding missions use numbers, facts, and graphs to tell your story. This proves to be incredibly helpful when you're trying to express a need for support surrounding more complex challenges like hearing health or education. Finally, we have resident surveys. These can be used hand in hand with scientific data, or they can stand alone when you're trying to identify common community issues or illustrate local opinions and needs. I've found surveys to be especially impactful when you're trying to appeal to emotion, but still want a factual backing. Our second strategy focuses on the club. How do your members help in the community? Relationship building is at the very heart of this strategy. When employing this technique, the club leverages its biggest member advocates and relies on them to build or call upon relationships with important public figures. This includes leading decision makers, government officials, business leaders, and other nonprofit board members and executives. These relationships will need to be fostered by both your advocates and your club as a whole with a strong communication plan. There should be a mix of in-person and written methods to make sure you are reaching as many people as possible and on a consistent basis. When focusing on the more personal, live interactions, think about how you can use public events, speeches and talks, one-on-one meetings, and open houses to tell your story. Written communication tactics will utilize your usual newsletters, newspaper articles, and editorials, blogs, and social media. No matter what route you choose, Pride Survey, a nonprofit surveying company, encourages nonprofits to use personal stories, education, and future goals when implementing the strategy. The final strategy is the feel-good strategy. It's the one that appeals to our intrinsic need to do good in the world. With this strategy, we want to show others how their involvement will make a difference and how the whole, or working together as one, is greater than its parts, or working alone. Gottlieb explains that community engagement is about connecting in a real way. When we interact with as many different people as possible, and with as many different portions of the community as possible, it does not take long to see that we all want the same thing, for our communities to be incredible places to live. Whereas the last strategy focused more on connecting with prominent community leaders, I think of this one as connecting with the people who will actually get the work done, the ones that are like most of us. It's not to say that the two audiences won't intersect at times, but the ways in which you approach them will likely be different. With these 3 strategies in mind, we turn to the tactics we can use to see the strategies through. The ones presented here today come from the experts and executives of the Forbes Nonprofit Council. Tactic number 1 is to participate locally. This is probably one that many clubs are doing already, but it's always important to evaluate how well you're doing it and if there are ways to improve. Get out there and get to know your community. This may mean something like volunteering at a community event or having a booth at your county fair. However you choose to do this, think about building awareness and putting a face to your club. Next up is something we hit on earlier: target leaders. This in and of itself was a strategy, but it's also a tactic. We target these individuals because they are influential, and as Forbes explains, an insider recommendation will always carry more weight. The club or an individual member will be most successful when they provide value first. Once these leaders understand how you're giving back and positively supporting your shared community, they are much more likely to become vocal advocates for your organization and your mission. Third, share your space. This one may not be an option that works for all clubs, but for those that have their own dedicated meeting and/or event space, sharing it with other people and organizations in your area can be an incredible show of goodwill. Offer up space for their next board meeting, a community training, business after-hours social, or networking event. When appropriate, ask if they allow you a couple minutes to introduce your organization as a space host and give a very brief mention of what your club does for the community. If your club doesn't have its own space, you can still consider being a space sponsor by paying for a facility rental or restaurant room for another organization or event. It's a great way to show support as long as the financial investment makes sense for the short or long-term ROI. Again, just make sure you're given the opportunity to put a face to the club's name and share why you are there to support them. Earlier, we talked about targeting leaders. Now let's talk about targeting the community. This tactic plays into our third strategy of demonstrating the benefits of involvement. Forbes notes, one of the best things any nonprofit can do to get the local community involved is to pull together a dedicated and energized group of individuals who will, as ambassadors of the organization, go out and engage the people. Passionate word of mouth is your best friend here. We want to get excited about what we do, and that becomes easier when we're surrounded by others who are equally excited about our mission. This one also relies heavily on relationships. We are mostly social creatures by nature, so messages about your fun community made up of our friends, family, and colleagues can be a great way to engage the community in your Sertoma story. And finally, we have the one that helps us answer the age-old question: what am I getting out of this? AmeriCorps' 2021 Volunteering for America report found that 23.2% of Americans, or 60.7 million people, volunteer through an organization each year. Their efforts translate to 4.1 billion annual volunteer hours and $122.9 billion in economic value. With numbers like these, it's clear that volunteerism is an important value to many of us. So how can your club use this knowledge to appeal to locals? When working with the public, you'll want to make sure you're choosing activities that don't just benefit the club, but rather both the organization and the community. That's why you'll want to explore the question we just raised. How are they benefiting by getting involved, whether it be as a member, a donor, or a volunteer? Forbes says that to get people engaged, it is important that people feel fulfilled for their effort. So whether you're working with a volunteer or with students doing a service project, make sure to know what is important to them and what will make them proud. We all know that it's important for our clubs to be engaged and relevant to our community. When we show that we are invested in the areas we serve, we illustrate that our fellow residents matter to us. We acknowledge that not only are these the people likely to provide voluntary and donor support, they're also the ones who we hope will benefit from the fruits of our mission work. Community engagement is the roadmap to telling this important story, and we hope that you can use the ideas shared here to tell yours to the world. We have additional resources on different types of engagement in the Training Library section of the Member Center at sertoma.org. You can also become more engaged with our own Sertoma community when you join us in the Member Corner on Facebook using the link on the screen. Pop by to share your successes, your challenges, and your questions with your headquarters staff and your fellow members.